Assembly tried to amend the Electoral Act. Unfortunately, that process wasn't consummated before the 2015 general elections. There are a number of steps that have already been taken on the basis of the existing law. Well, some persons are saying, fair enough, that the National Assembly is proceeding with the amendment and the president is being urged to do that. Whenever the president does that, then of course that law kicks in. But electioneering campaigns. Earlier you were talking about the fact that the major candidates in the presidential election have similar backgrounds in terms of their demographics, but that the campaign will be more intense at the subnational level, where you have all kinds of interests, being thrown up. What do we foresee in terms of electioneering? Because that's our main focus right now. I mean, as Sami Todo said, campaigns have virtually started. I've always raised that point on Good Morning Nigeria, even with ANEC officials being on site with us, to say, what posters and billboards, you're not tearing them down. Those form parts of campaigns. But let's say the formal flag-off of campaigns will be in about 3 weeks. But what should we expect in terms of electioneering? That will have to involve security. It will also involve access to the media. It will involve also, not just access to the media, the political advertisement, and more importantly, political communication.
Yeah, okay. Let me start on a lighter note by saying that that particular provision that says that a whistle has to be blown first before a campaign begins, I think to me it should be a sponge, because it is seriously observed in the breach. And we shouldn't continue to deceive ourselves. Usually, campaign begins almost immediately after the swearing of a new set of leadership. And as we mentioned, if you go all over the place, cities, towns, villages, you see billboards, posters, and so on. In fact, even some jingles. And during the primaries, what actually happened was serious campaign. But by and large, I think the color, context, and structure of the campaign that we are going to witness largely depends on compliance or non-compliance by the critical stakeholders within the political process. The political parties, the candidates, the electorates, security agencies, and so on and so forth. I say compliance because their conduct and behavior and how they should act and behave are actually provided for in the external laws, the Constitution and the Electoral Acts. The devil usually is in whether they are ready and willing to comply. And there is this notorious reality that where there is non-compliance, hardly nothing happens. But particularly the INEC must be seen to be completely impartial. It must be up and doing. The members of the political class should approach electioneering with the nation in mind, that this is an election, a simple contest. At the end of the day, somebody is going to win, another person is going to lose, but the country should remain. Therefore, we expect them to conduct themselves very well, even though this is an ideal, because at the end of the day, the health of the democratic enterprise wholly depends on their compliance or non-compliance with the rule of the game. The electorate too, we expect nothing but good behavior from them. They should listen to the politicians, the political parties, the candidates, and try to choose among them without necessarily getting drawn into the murky waters of politics.
So my question is, who should drive the process to ensure that these critical stakeholders adhere to the rules?
Well, as I mentioned earlier on, the behavior and conduct is already provided for in the legal framework. INEC is in the forefront of this because it's supposed to monitor the conduct and behavior of political parties and to an extent sanction them. Security agents too have a role to play. Where there is non-compliance, particularly of criminal nature, it is supposed it's supposed to enforce the full rest of the law. The law courts are also there to ensure that members of the political class and members of the electorate comply. And therefore, the drivers are indeed all the stakeholders. If all of them behave the way they are, the way the law says they should behave, so I think we are going to have a seamless process.
All right, thank you very much. Sami Todo, one aspect from recent experience in terms of standalone elections, excuse me, we have seen the phenomenon of see and buy, money politics. How then will the content of campaigns matter ahead of 2019? I mean, you can have all the billboards, you can have all the jingles, all the posters, and all the advertisements that you need to have. When it's voting day and voting time, how do you make those messages matter rather than see and buy? In other words, how do you begin to prepare to deal with the influence of money on voting day?
That's a hard nut to crack. And the reason why it's a hard nut to crack is we're the poverty capital of the world. And that just answers it. Whilst we talk about here the values of integrity and patriotism, the gospel truth is, for someone who has not eaten 3 square meals in a day, and who does not even have hope of eating tomorrow, and he sees a politician dangling 5,000 naira before him, they won't be able to resist the temptation to collect those money. But that's not a justification. And when you talk about how, first is the need for a very strong and radical messaging that changes the orientation of the average voter. That when you collect monies, when you sell your vote, what you simply do is you mortgage your future. You lose your voice. And so if someone wins an election, the person will not be accountable to you. And we also need to think in the long term and what is actually good for what we call our own common good and for the good of all. And so we must rise up and condemn. We've been condemning it, and NTA has also been playing a leading role in condemning vote buying. We need to continue to condemn it and urge voters not to be deceived and not to be drawn to this enticement and the gifts and the monies that politicians actually give. It's very, very important. The second stream is accountability. And the fact that, I have said it before, that we have observed that the two main parties are culprits when it comes to vote buying, but we need to actually rise up and hold them accountable. And the security agencies have a critical role to play. That on the day of elections, it is important that for security agencies who are deployed, they should apprehend any individual, irrespective of party, who is involved in trading and buying, in trading of votes, and even those who are actually selling their vote. Because what you're seeing is even voters are willfully selling their votes, and so that also needs to be addressed. The third stream is around the campaign financing. It just beats my imagination how a party can actually mobilize billions of naira on the day of elections, and no institution of state is raising those questions. It then tells you that there's complicity on the part of the state itself in encouraging this clientelistic politics that we play or vote buying. For me, those are actions that we need to take. But the truth is, it is sad that this is happening within our political process. It's been there before, but citizens have a role to play. That when like Harry said, when candidates come to campaign, as from November 18th, there are only three things that should determine who gets your vote. One is the capacity of the candidate, the character of the candidate, and then the competence of the candidate. And it's not about the money that the political party or even the candidate provides.
Dr. Kare,
Yes.
your thoughts on this with regard to resolving the tension between the content of political campaigns and see and buy, that is money politics on the day of voting, that could make nonsense of all the electioneering campaigns.
Well, the last time I was here, I put it, okay, rather funnily, that whenever there are willing buyers and sellers, there will be a market. It's unfortunate, but it's one of the most notorious political realities of present Nigerian political process. And as Samson mentioned, the solution, as far as I'm concerned, lies in the critical institution of states playing their role. And second, in ending impunity. It is actually impunity that encourages and fuels this vote buying. For instance, people are arrested in Osun, few people. We have not heard anything about them. If they are prosecuted and diligently